The food was getting cold, and Dev was standing at the wrong door. He checked his phone again. Apartment 4B. The order said 4B, but the name on the door said R. Lirathai, and the customer who ordered butter chicken was a man named Gopal who had definitely not written R. Lirathai on his profile. Dev shifted the delivery bag to his other hand and looked down the hallway. There was a 4D at the far end. He squinted. The light in this building was always half dead. He knocked on 4D. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. He pulled up the order again. The customer had not picked up his calls either. Gopal from 4B had ordered, paid, and then apparently disappeared off the face of the building. The food was now definitely cold. Dev stood there for a moment, doing the math that all delivery boys learn to do. The food could not go back. The restaurant did not take returns on cooked orders. His nanny would ask questions if he brought food back, and her questions always felt like small court hearings. He walked back to 4B. He would just ask the neighbor if they knew where Gopal was. He knocked. There was a long pause, long enough that Dev almost walked away. Then the door opened just a little. A face appeared in the gap, and Dev, who had lived in this city his whole life and was used to seeing all kinds of people, still felt his breath catch for just a second. She was Lirathai. He had seen them before in the market and on the transit, but never this close. Her skin was a pale gray blue, smooth and faintly luminous the way certain deep-sea things are luminous. Her eyes were large and dark with no visible white. She was very thin, not the thin of someone athletic, the thin of someone who did not eat much. Her skin shifted color slightly as she looked at him, a faint blue, like the inside of a held breath. "Sorry," Dev said. "I'm looking for 4D. A man named Gopal. Do you know him?" She blinked slowly. "He travels," she said. Her voice was careful and soft, each word placed like a step on uncertain ground. "He left this morning. For 2 weeks." Dev closed his eyes for exactly 1 second. "Great," he said, opening them again. He looked down at the bag. 1 full butter chicken, rice, naan, a small cup of raita. All paid for, all been a waste. He looked back at her. She had not moved from the small gap in the door. Her eyes had dropped to the bag, just for a moment, then back to his face. "Do you want it?" Dev said. Her skin flickered, a quick pulse of something he could not name. "No," she said, "but thank you." "It will be thrown out," Dev said, not to convince her, just because it was true. "I have food," she said. He glanced past her before he could stop himself. The apartment was small and very neat. A desk covered in papers and a glowing screen. A shelf of books, alien script mixed with human titles. And on the kitchen counter, a stack of pale square sheets, flat and white and perfectly uniform, like oversized pieces of paper. He had heard of nourished sheets. He had never seen someone actually living on them. He looked at them and then looked at her, and he did not say anything because his nanny had taught him that some observations belong only inside your own head. "Okay," he said. "Sorry to bother you." She nodded once. He turned and walked back down the hallway. At the stairwell door, he paused and looked back. Her door was closed. The hallway was quiet. He took the food back to the restaurant and told his nanny the customer was not home. His nanny took the container and looked at it. "And the neighbor?" she said, without looking up. Dev frowned. "What neighbor?" "You knocked on the neighbor's door first. You always do when there is a problem." Dev sometimes forgot that his nanny had known him for 19 years. "She said no," he said. Nanny was quiet. She opened the container, looked at the butter chicken, and then closed it again. "What kind of no?" she said. Dev thought about the way the girl's eyes had dropped to the bag. Just for 1 second, the way her skin had flickered that unnamed color. "The kind that is not really a no," he said, before he could think about it. Nanny nodded slowly, the way she did when she was filing something away. Dev went back to the dispatch board and picked up his next order. He did not think about the apartment at 4B. He thought about his next 3 deliveries and the fact that his phone needed charging and whether Sable had taken the last of the good delivery bags again. He did not think about the stack of white sheets on the counter. He almost managed it. But on the ride home, 2 hours later, the image came back without asking. A shelf of books, a glowing screen, a desk full of papers, a girl who lived in her own head and ate things that tasted like nothing. He did not know why it stayed with him. He just knew that it did. Rail ate her morning nourish sheet, standing at the kitchen window. She always stood. Sitting felt like making the act more important than it was. A nourish sheet was fuel. You did not sit down for fuel. You did not light a candle for it or arrange it on a plate. You peeled it from the stack, folded it once the way her mother had shown her, and you ate it in 4 bites. It took less than a minute. It took less than a minute, and it tasted like absolutely nothing, and Rail had eaten 10,000 of them without once noticing. She noticed today. She stood at the window and chewed and looked out at the street below and thought very specifically about nothing. She was quite good at thinking about nothing. She had a research paper to finish, 3 unread messages from her academic supervisor, and a hologram call she had been putting off for 6 days. She finished the nourish sheet and licked her finger and went to her desk. She opened the hologram call. Ren's face filled the small blue square above her desk. Older than Rail by 8 years. Same dark eyes. Same pale skin, though Ren's shifted faster, more expressively, the way people got after years of living in open social environments. You look thin, Ren said immediately. I'm always this thin, Rail said. You look thinner than you're thin. Rail set her hands in her lap. I have a question, she said. About food. Ren's skin pulsed once, a quick flash of yellow. Curiosity. You never ask about food. I know. You have nourished sheets. I know that too. Rail kept her voice steady. I want to know what real food tastes like. Not the science of it. Not the nutrition. What actually is. When you eat it. Ren was quiet for a moment. Her luminescence settled to a cautious, even tone. The color of someone choosing words carefully. You met someone, Ren said. Rail said nothing. Rail. A delivery person knocked on my door by mistake yesterday, Rail said. He had food. I said no. I am asking an academic question. Ren looked at her for a long time. You are not asking an academic question. I am asking you what food tastes like. It tastes like a lot of things, Ren said. Depending on what it is. A pause. It is warm, usually, or it is cold in a way that is meant to be cold. It has texture. Our nourished sheets dissolve. Real food does not dissolve. It has weight in your mouth. Another pause, longer, and it smells before you eat it. That is the thing most Lyrathai do not expect. The smell comes first, and it already tells you something. Rail thought about the hallway outside her door. The smell that had stayed even after the bag was gone. Rail, Rin said, and her voice was softer now. You know what Mother would say. I know, eating human food is not forbidden, but it is a line. Once you start wanting things you did not have before, you start becoming someone our parents do not recognize. I'm already someone they do not recognize, Rail said quietly. I live alone on another planet, and I research human communication patterns. I think that ship has sailed. Ren's skin flickered, something between amusement and worry. Just be careful, she said. That is all I am saying. They spoke for a few more minutes about other things. The call ended. Rail sat at her desk and did not open her research paper. Across the city, Dev was at the restaurant getting scolded. It was not a loud scolding. His nanny did not do loud. She did quiet and specific, which was worse. You gave away a full order, she said, stirring the dal. The customer was not there, Dev said, and you offered it to the neighbor. She said no, but you offered. His nanny tapped the spoon on the pot. Why? Dev leaned against the counter. She had nourished sheets, just a stack of them. That is all she had in her kitchen. His nanny was quiet for a moment. She stirred the dal twice more. The Lyrathai girl from the 4th floor? Dev blinked. You know her? I know of her. She has lived there 2 years. She gets her nourished sheets delivered every 3 weeks. She does not come down much. Nanny tapped the spoon again. 2 years on paper. Dev said nothing. His nanny turned and looked at him directly, which meant the quiet scolding was over and the actual conversation was beginning. She took a small container from the shelf and began ladling khichdi into it. Simple. Rice and yellow lentils cooked soft with a little turmeric and a spoon of ghee on top. Take this tonight, she said. Dev stared. Nanny, I am not her delivery person. You are a person, she said, closing the container. And she is hungry. These are the only 2 facts that matter. She set the container on the counter in front of him. If she says no, leave it at the door. Cold khichdi still has flavor, which is more than paper does. Dev looked at the container. It was warm. The ghee smell came up through the lid. He picked it up. He told himself he would just leave it at the door and go. He did not fully believe himself. Dev had no delivery bag this time. That was the part that felt strange. He rode the elevator to the 4th floor with a small container in both hands and no order number, no receipt, no reason that could be logged into a system. Just a container of kitschty and the memory of a stack of white sheets on a kitchen counter. He knocked. The pause was shorter this time. The door opened a little wider than before. Rael looked at him, then at his hands. Her skin shifted through 2 colors very quickly, like someone flipping through pages before settling on something that was neither blue nor gold, but somewhere between them. "You are not making a delivery," she said. "No," Dev said. "My nanny made this. She wanted you to have it." A small silence. "Your grandmother does not know me." "She knows of you," Dev said. She said 2 years on paper is too long. He held out the container. "It is kitschty, rice and lentils. She makes it soft so it is easy on the stomach." She thought, if you have never eaten Rael food before, soft is a good place to start. Rael did not move to take it. Her hand stayed at her sides. Dev had expected this. He tried to remember what he had decided to say in the elevator, then forgot all of it and said the first true thing instead. "She will be sad if I bring it back," he said. She made it specifically. She does not do things for no reason. It was mostly true. The mostly true version of a thing was always easier to say than the completely true version. Rael's skin flickered again. Her eyes moved from his face to the container. He could see her thinking, not just deciding, but actually thinking the way people did when a small choice had more weight than it should. She reached out and took it. Her fingers touched the container, and she pulled her hand back slightly from the warmth of it, then held on. "Thank her," Rael said quietly. "I will," Dev said. He turned to go. He was halfway down the hall before she called after him, not loudly, just enough. "What does it taste like?" she said. "The kitschty." He turned around. She was still standing in the doorway, holding the container with both hands now. "Like when someone is trying to take care of you," Dev said. "That is what my nanny's food always tastes like." Rael looked at him. Her skin did something he had not seen before, a soft, slow pulse from the center of her collarbone outward, like a stone dropped in still water. Then it stopped, and she was still again. "Okay," she said. She went inside and closed the door. Dev stood in the empty hallway for a moment longer than was necessary. Then he went back to work. Rael sat down at her kitchen table. She did not stand this time. The container was warm in her hands. She could feel it through the plastic, a steady, even warmth that was completely different from anything a nourished sheet had ever done. Nourished sheets were room temperature. Always. They did not change in your hands. She opened the container. The smell came up immediately, exactly the way Ren had described. Before the taste, before the texture, the smell arrived and said something. Rael did not have the vocabulary for what it said. It was warm and earthy, and there was something in it, the turmeric, the ghee, that her brain tried to file under known categories and could not. She picked up the small plastic fork Dev had tucked under the lid. She took a small bite, smaller than necessary. The texture was the first thing. Soft but not dissolved. It had weight. It had presence. Her tongue found the separate grains of rice, the lentils that had cooked down into something thick and gentle, the small pop of the ghee, which was somehow both rich and simple at the same time. Then the taste. She sat very still. It was not sharp. It was not complicated. It was just warm, all the way down, and it was made by someone's hands. And for one completely irrational second, Rael felt something she had absolutely no explanation for. A sting behind her eyes. A tightness in her throat that had nothing to do with swallowing. She breathed through it. She took another bite. Somewhere during the 4th bite, she realized her bioluminescence had gone deep amber. She had seen that color in old Lyrathai texts. It had a name. It was called the color of remembering something you never knew. Scholars used it to describe the feeling of reading an ancient poem and understanding in your body before your mind caught up. Rael had always thought it was a poetic exaggeration. She looked down at her own hands, glowing amber in the dim kitchen, holding a container of rice and lentils made by a stranger's grandmother. She took another bite. She finished every last grain. She sat with the empty container for a long time afterward, in the quiet apartment, while her skin slowly returned to its normal gray-blue and the amber faded like the last light of something. She was not the same as she had been that morning. She could not have explained how exactly, only that something had been given a name that it had not had before. Dev told Sable he was not going back. Sable was sorting delivery bags at the back of the restaurant, untangling the straps with the focused energy of someone who did not believe a word she was hearing. "I went once," Dev said. "Nanny asked me to. I went. Done." "You're going back tomorrow," Sable said. "I am not." You described the way her skin changed color for 4 minutes straight. Dev opened his mouth, closed it. "I was explaining Lyrithi biology." Sable handed him a bag. "Sure," she said. "Go do your deliveries." He went back the next evening. He did not have a reason prepared. He just had a small container of leftover dal fry that was too little to sell and too much to throw, and he happened to be riding past the building anyway, and the light was already on in apartment 4B. He knocked. Rael opened the door in 4 seconds. The night before it had taken 30. Her skin was a calm, steady blue-gray. But when she saw the container, the color shifted slightly. Not the frantic flickering of the first night. Something quieter, like the difference between a gasp and a slow breath. "Leftover," Dev said. "Dalefe e ripsidon. It is a little spicy. Tell me if that is too much, and I will bring something milder next time." He said next time without meaning to. She took the container. "Come in," she said, which she also clearly had not entirely planned on saying, because she stepped back quickly and began moving papers off her second chair with slightly too much speed. Dev came in. He had not been inside the apartment before. It was small and filled with light. The bookshelves were more impressive up close. Human books and Lyrithi text side by side, some of them clearly read many times over. Her desk had 3 screens and covered most of one wall. Research notes in 2 languages were pinned in overlapping layers. "You study human communication," he said, reading the title of the paper nearest to him. "Specifically the way humans use food as a social signal," she said from the kitchen, opening the container. "I've been studying it for 2 years." A pause. "From text and video sources." Dev looked at the stack of Nourish sheets on the counter. "Much smaller than the first night. And now you are studying it directly," he said. "Apparently," she said. She took a bite, standing at the counter. He watched her face, which was hard not to do because her face did so much. Her skin moved with her thoughts in a way human faces did not quite manage. The dal fry hit, and her luminescence flickered gold at the edges, then settled. "Spicy," she said. "Too much." "No." She took another bite. "It is interesting. It starts warm and then it builds." Nourish sheets do not build. They talked for 40 minutes. Dev sat in the cleared chair and Rael leaned against the kitchen counter. They talked about food the way people who have never really spoken before sometimes do, all in a rush, everything spilling out at once because there is suddenly someone who is listening. She asked him why Indian food used so many spices. He told her about his nanny's theory that each spice was a different kind of warmth, and some were for the body, and some were for the mind, and some were for the part of you that needed comforting. She asked what comfort food meant exactly. He thought about it for a while before saying it was food that tasted like someone was on your side. Her skin did the patterning thing again. The small rippling waves from the center of her chest outward, like a pulse. It was different from the color shifts. More complex. More internal. "You keep doing that," Dev said, pointing carefully. "The wave pattern. What does it mean?" She looked down at her own chest. The patterns were already fading. "I do not know," she said, and she sounded genuinely puzzled. "I have not made that pattern before. The color shifts, I know. Those have names. But this one is new." Dev thought about that on the ride home. Over the next 2 weeks, the visits became a quiet routine. Not every day. 3 times a week, maybe 4. Always in the evening. Always something small from the restaurant. Sometimes leftovers, sometimes things his nanny set aside on purpose and pretended were accidents. Rael started asking questions before he arrived. She would send a short message. "What is the dish tonight?" Just that, no question mark, as if she were already certain a dish was coming. Dev found he liked those messages more than he should have. Sable noticed. She did not say much. just watched him pack the extra container into his bag with that expression she had, the one where her mouth stayed flat but her eyes were doing all the commentary. Not a word, Dev said. I said nothing, Sable said. Your face said plenty. Sable handed him his helmet. She sent you a message today, did she not? Dev did not answer. You smiled at your phone for a full minute, Sable said. I counted. Dev put on his helmet and left. He was smiling again before he reached the elevator. The hologram call came on a Tuesday, and Rail knew before she answered it that it was going to be difficult. Ren did not start with hello. Ren started with a long look, the kind that covered a lot of ground before any words were used. I have heard from Mira, Ren said. Mira was a Lyrathai academic who lived 2 districts away. She says you have been seen, eating, with a human boy. Rail sat down. He is a delivery person. He brings food. You have been seen eating with him, Rail. Inside your apartment. More than once. He stays for a short while. We talk. About what? Food. Culture. His grandmother's cooking philosophy. My research. Rail kept her voice even. It is relevant to my work. Ren's skin was a tight, controlled pale. Not quite white. The color of contained worry. I'm not saying it is wrong, Ren said carefully. I'm saying that people are noticing. And when they notice, they talk. And when they talk, it reaches home. Rail was quiet. Mother will call, Ren said. When she does, she will not be unkind. But she will ask you whether you are losing yourself. And I need you to have an answer ready. Because I will not always be on the call to soften things. I know what I'm doing, Rail said. Do you? The question sat in the space between them. Rail looked at her desk, at the research notes, at the stack of nourished sheets that was now pushed to the far back corner of the counter, behind the container Dev had brought yesterday with a handwritten note on the lid that said Jira rice. Not spicy. Nanny says eat it hot. You're starting to want things, Ren said gently. That is the beginning of a long road, Rail. And I am not there to walk it with you. You never were, Rail said. Not cruelly, just as a fact. Ren looked at her for a moment longer. Her skin shifted to a soft, resigned green-gray. Be careful, she said. That is all. Just be careful. The call ended. Rail sat very still for a long time. She thought about her mother, about the careful, quiet house she had grown up in, where nourished sheets were eaten standing because sitting implied ceremony, and ceremony around food was something other species did. Humans and their dinners. Humans and their long tables and their talking and their music while eating. How strange, her mother had always said. How unnecessary. Rail had agreed once. She thought about Ren's words. Losing yourself. It was the Lyrathai way of naming something real. You came to a new world. You began to like things from it. And slowly the self you brought with you was replaced, piece by piece, by something your home would not recognize. Was that what was happening? She looked at the nourished sheets. She looked at the container on the counter with the handwritten note. She thought about the amber color that had come up the first night, and the patterning that came when Dev spoke, and how she had gone to bed on both those nights feeling fuller than her nutrition readings said she should be. That evening, when Dev knocked, she did not come to the door. She stood in the middle of her apartment and listened to the knock. One knock, a pause, 2 more, a little softer, the way he knocked when he was not sure. She did not move. She heard him set the container down. She heard his footsteps going back to the elevator. She heard nothing after that. She stood in her apartment for a long time, not moving. Then she went to bed. In the morning, she opened her door. The container was there, neatly centered in front of the door. He had written on the lid with the small marker he always kept in his jacket pocket. He wrote on every lid. This one said, Alu Paratha. Don't worry, I wrapped it. It is fine cold too. Rail picked it up. She stood in the doorway holding it, and her skin went amber all on its own, without her permission, without her wanting it to. Just a slow bloom of it from her chest outward, like something surfacing. She went inside. She sat down at the table. She ate it cold the way he had said she could, and it was still warm in every way that mattered. She opened her laptop and typed 3 new pages of research notes. Not from text sources, from memory. Later, she sent Dev a message. Just 4 words, the para that was good. She stared at it for a moment. Then she added 3 more. Thank you, Nanny. She set her phone down, and for the first time in 2 years, She pulled out her chair before she started eating her nourish sheet. She sat down for it. It still tasted like nothing, but she sat down for it anyway, because sitting, she had decided, was a way of saying something mattered, even if you were still working out exactly what. 3 days passed without a knock. Dev told himself she needed space. Sable told him he was moping. He said he was not moping. He was just quiet. Sable said that was the same thing with better posture. On the fourth morning, his phone buzzed. The message from Rail said, "Can I come to the restaurant? To eat there, the way humans do." Dev read it twice. Then he typed, "Yes. Come tonight. After 9, it will be quiet." He showed the message to Sable. Sable read it and handed the phone back and said, "Tell your nanny." Nanny did not react the way he expected. He thought there might be some discussion, some caution. She was 70 years old, and she had opinions about most things. Instead, she looked at him and said, "How many times have I told you to buy better chairs for table 3? They wobble. Buy better chairs." She turned back to the stove. "And tell her to come from the side door. Parking lot side. Fewer people." At 9:15, Rail knocked at the side door. Dev opened it. She was wearing a gray jacket with the collar turned up and her hands were tucked in her pockets. Her skin was a steady, quiet blue, calm on the surface, but her luminescence had a slight flicker at the edges that he had learned to recognize. She was nervous. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she said, trying the word. She had been practicing small human greetings. He had noticed. He brought her inside. The restaurant was empty except for the kitchen light. Dev had set table 3 with 2 proper plates, a small clay dia that Nanny kept on the shelf and never actually used as a decoration, and 2 glasses of water because he had no idea what else to put down, and water seemed like a safe start. Rail stood in the doorway of the dining room and looked at it. Her skin pulsed once gold. She sat down. Nanny came out of the kitchen without being called. She had a small tray with a plate of freshly made dal makhani and rice, soft butter naan folded in a cloth, and a small bowl of something Rail did not recognize. Rail looked up at her. It was their first meeting in person. Nanny looked at Rail. She did not do what many people did, the brief glance at the skin, the careful professional smile. She just looked at her the way she looked at everyone, steady and complete, the way you looked at someone you were already prepared to feed. "Fernie," Nanny said, pointing to the small bowl. "Rice pudding. It is sweet. You eat it last." She set the tray down, or whenever you want. "I did not make rules about order." She pulled out the chair across from Rail and sat down. Dev blinked. Nanny never sat with customers. But Nanny was already talking, not about the food, about the dal makhani. Yes, but specifically about the black lentils, how they had to soak overnight, how her own mother had made it differently, with less butter but more patience, and how patience and butter were not really so different in the end. Rail listened. She ate slowly, and she listened, and somewhere during the second piece of naan, her bioluminescence began to do something neither of them had ever seen before. It started at her collarbone. The patterning, the rippling waves Dev had noticed before. But this time it did not stay small. It spread, slowly, steadily, across her shoulders, down her arms, up along her jaw. The whole room shifted slightly in tone. A warm, amber gold light, gentle and slow, filling the small dining space the way the last light of evening fills a room before you reach for the switch. Nanny stopped talking, not because she was startled, because she understood, the way people who have fed others for 50 years understand, that something significant was happening and it deserved quiet. Dev sat very still. Rail looked at her own hands. The pattern moved across her fingers like water. "What is it?" Dev asked very softly. She looked up. Her large dark eyes were bright. Not tearful, just very, very awake. "In Lyrathai," she said, "there is a word. Valith." She said it slowly. "It means the warmth you feel when you realize you are not alone in the universe. We have a word in all our oldest texts. Scholars use it to describe ancient things. Ilusupikal moments. The feeling of first understanding a great poem. A pause. I always thought it was a word for big events." She looked at the table, at the plate and the non-cloth and the little clay dia with its unlit wick. "It is not," she said. Nanny reached over and patted Rail's hand once. firm and warm and brief. The way she patted Dev's hand when he needed to hear something without being told. Rael looked at her, and her skin glowed veileth, amber gold and steady, without flickering. Later, Dev washed the plates, and Nanny dried them, and Rael sat at the table with the Fernie, eating it slowly, very last, just as Nanny had suggested. She had lived on paper for 2 years. She had not known, until a boy knocked on the wrong door, that paper was never enough.